Imogen Thomas,
Hello.
congratulations on your film EMU RUNNER, which you made when?
The film was shot in the winter of 2017 and it was completed last year to be ready for the Toronto International Film Festival,
Right.
which was in September.
And how did it go at Toronto?
It was very well received. I mean, I had no sort of preconception of what Toronto was like, and nor the scale of such a festival. We were definitely a small vessel with lots of luxury liner sort of films with, big celebrities and big production values, but our little film held its ground and was really well received by the local audience and, that other sort of group of people that are there to consume cinema.
It is a very lovely little film with a very, very beautiful story in it. I think a very uplifting story. But in your own words, in a nutshell, can you tell us what you think the film is about?
Well, I suppose the premise of the story is about dealing, for this community in particular, where the story takes place, which is Brewarrina. It was very much about tackling the idea of loss and grief for these communities. So in this instance, this story is about a little girl whose mother dies very unexpectedly, and it's about how she has to charter this very new ground for her and how she's struggling with that. And the thing that is actually maybe making more sense to her is that connection that her mother has instilled in her about country and in particular the emu, which is her totem animal.
Yes, the emu appears in the film as a symbol, presumably of the spirit of her mother, which is pulling her towards the, quite traditional beliefs and values that she's been taught. At the same time, there's a tension running through the film of the modern world, of the need to go to school, of to obey the rules, which is not thrown away in the film. It's actually shown as being an important part of life. The father, certainly, played by Wayne Blair, the director, is very, very insistent. You've got to do the right thing. You've got to go to school. You've got to behave. So just tell me a little bit about the tension that you've put in the film between the traditional and the modern world that this girl finds herself in after her mother passes away.
Well, I think that is that struggle of trying to, that thing where people say, you've got to move forward after you lose a significant other. But I think that in itself is quite, how do you go about that? And everyone grieves very differently. And sometimes, structures of life, be it, having to go to school can be helpful, and for some it can be quite not make sense or really reflect how you're feeling. So it doesn't have much value, and I think that's where that little girl finds herself, is that she can't engage with it or connect with it, and it is a bit of a struggle for her because her father is, desperately trying to keep the family unit together. He has pressures coming in on, from his own family, as well as those institutions like social services who are sort of weighing in on his life and how he's managing his daughter as well. It does create the recipe for tensions to arise for this little girl. I've had a very long-standing relationship with the community, and in particular the woman that worked with me, Frame Barker. She was sort of my script consultant, and she works as an early childhood educator. She's the director of the Indigenous preschool. And through her, I really got a window into seeing the challenges for community when you have a large group of people that come in for very transient periods of time. They come in with lots of ideas and energy, but they also come with their own framework. And, it does take a long time to really understand the complexity of how community works, and also sort of the broader and bigger historical issues, the intergenerational trauma of these communities, and sometimes that time isn't taken to sit back and maybe observe, listen, and see how the machinations of the community really flow. Some things, there are strengths and weaknesses in all communities, and I suppose in this story's case, it's really looking at someone sort of, young, passionate, fresh out of university with big ideas, coming to this small community, wanting to do, she has very good intentions, I suppose the antagonist Heidi in this story, but I think maybe she hasn't really grasped the full scope of, that this family is trying to manage the very difficult situation they're in. And I think that's, I was just trying to touch on it, but it's not really about creating social divisions, in the community. It's just sort of trying to highlight that these misunderstandings and tensions do exist, and that maybe the answers lie within the community leaders in the community.
The film seems to send a pretty, if I may say, uplifting and positive message about the value of schools in these communities, especially regarding Indigenous kids. Did you intend the film to have this message? Again,
working with Frame Barker as a consultant, I think it was very much from the onset that we wanted, her directive is that, that the film delivers us somewhere positive, because we're touching on some really very poignant social problems. As I said, death and loss is a very big thing in the community, and we also wanted to deliver the audience in a place which was hopeful. It showed, the other thing is about, strength and resilience, and these are the qualities that also are the things that keep these communities alive and functioning very well.
You did use non-professional actors in this film.
Yeah, well, there are non-professional, and then there are people like Wayne Blair and Muriel Spirim and Rob Carlton and Georgia Blizzard as well, yes.
How was that meshing, trying to mesh those two classes of actor, professional and non-professional?
Well, I suppose there's different processes involved, and in many ways, if anything, a professional actor brought a process, a filmmaking process, how you shoot a film. It's as Ray Kai discovered very quickly, the young lead in this film, it's hard work, and it's about repetition, getting multiple angles, you have technical problems, and she became, when you watch someone like Wayne Blair, who, he's a well-seasoned actor, and he has a great handling of the medium as a director, but as an actor, and I think having him setting sort of the benchmark as well. So there were lessons learned from both, him also wanting to make sure that his performance would marry with their performance, because it's very subtle and nuanced. You can't sort of imprint your expectations on how they're going to respond to a scene, even though it was all scripted. Their responses were very unique, surprising at times, and I think that brought forth very raw, engaging, emotional.
Can you tell me how many millions and millions and millions of dollars you had for the budget for this film?
Yes. No, look, this film was predicated on Goodwill. Everyone had to want to tell the story, and they came on board with that intention.
So you had a lot of volunteer work, a lot of
everyone sort of
labour?
Yeah, exactly. Well, on reinvesting their labour into the production. The film was made with the Brewarrina community and for the Brewarrina community initially. There wouldn't be a film without it. It was very, a specific project for that community, and about delivering it back to them, which we did after Toronto. We took the film back and had a community screening, which was incredible. We had a community of just under 2,000 people. We had nearly 400 people come to the community hall, and very old to young children. So it had to be that sort of film that would be able to embrace the broad spectrum of the community. Yeah, look, the audience response has been amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's one of those films that, it's a universal theme. We all are going to lose someone in our lives, and I think it creeps up on people and really gets them. You have a real responsibility to these communities, so you can't just walk in and think, you can say what, tell the story you think that you have to tell. You really have to say, well, what sort of things where do you want us to deliver the audience? What are the things? And I think, like Frame Barker would say, it's important that the story is sort of aspirational. Like delivers you to a point where you go, actually, we can work through these really difficult times, and there is a sort of, things we can start looking forward to in the future.
What do you think of this issue at the moment about who can tell whose stories? Can a white person tell a black person's story? Can a black person tell a white person's story? Can a male tell a female story? The other way around. Can a straight person tell a gay story? Can a straight actor play a gay character? What do you think of that very contentious issue at the moment?
It is.
Because you're a white woman and
Yes.
you've directed
Yeah.
a film about Indigenous issues, and it's beautiful.
Look, I think it's very complex to unpack it in a one-line sentence, and I think it's very important that Indigenous people tell their stories. Absolutely. In this case, I very much feel I'm working in collaboration. It's been a team effort, and we stand together. I stand, I'm not in this interview at this moment because I don't have anyone from community, but I will on Saturday. And that's been one of my really important prerequisites with the festivals. I took Mary Waits, who played the grandmother, to Toronto with me because it was very important that we stand together. We made this together, and there's a sense of ownership from everyone who's worked on it. So I think that's very important, and every part of the process has involved the community in consultation and trying to weave those sensitivities. So, I'd come to the script and Frame would go, I think you really need to go speak to an elder, go talk to Auntie June and Roy in Lightning Ridge. They've got the law, you need to talk to them, and I would do that. There were certain sensitivities, Ray Kai's mother was concerned about certain things in the script, you take that on board. Again, it's about having a real responsibility well beyond after making the film. You as a director have to have a relationship beyond that artefact you've created. It's about nurturing those relationships that you've created during the film, and that's why that's what it's about for me. I initially came out to Warriner in 2003 to work with the women's shelter called Arganya, and it was an Indigenous shelter, and at that time the idea was to maybe make a film of sorts, but there wasn't really the time frames or the budget to do that. But what it did provide me with is a great opportunity to meet the women in the community. That's how I met Frame Barker in particular, but other women. And as I said, I also was a mother and I had a child, so there was a commonality. We were going through similar things, so that broke down some of the barriers. And it was also just, I suppose, seeing firsthand how people were having to deal, with the challenges in their lives and the struggles. So that was my first engagement, and then over time, through meeting and developing relationships, we decided to create a short film first and see how that would go, and tried to appeal to the broader audience to be involved again. And so the schools came on board, and after the success of Mixed Bag, everyone wanted, it was a very positive experience, and so that sort of propelled the next project.